Congressman, I was looking at the Congressional Research Service report, Appropriations and Fund Transfers in the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act by Stephen Redhead. This is a study they did to determine the mandatory spending that was built into the Obamacare legislation?
My answer would be yes, except I would define it differently than mandatory spending. I would say it's automatic spending, or so automatic appropriations. But yes, that's the study. If it's one, there's one dated October and the other one February 10th, and October doesn't lay out the numbers in such a way that you can discern them. February 10th does, and that is it is written, I believe, in response to our multiple requests to get a total from CRS. And we negotiated and discussed with them as they put the report together, and I produced a spreadsheet that identifies all of those spending points that totals $105,464,000,000.
In spending, and that spending is, in some cases it takes place this year, and in some places it's spread out over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a 10-year window, and in this fiscal year it's $4.95 billion, of which some number, $2+ billion has been spent at this point. There's some that's in the 2010 fiscal year, and I haven't quite identified that exact number yet. That's presumably gone, or allocated at least. So that's how this goes. And some of the spending in there goes beyond 10 years. It's identified, at least in the memo that my staff put together, as in perpetuity. One of those Medicare efficiencies, $1 billion every year in perpetuity.
Unless Congress does something to stop it.
Yes, this will implement Obamacare, and at least go a long ways towards the implementation of Obamacare. And Congress has an affirmative action to shut off this automatic spending. It's the equivalent of having Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Obama sitting down and writing post-dated checks totaling $100.5 billion to ensure that they would have the funding necessary to implement Obamacare, even if they lost the majority. And I think they expected to lose the majority in the House.
Of the $105.5 billion that this Congressional Research Service report shows was built-in spending in the original Obamacare law, you say that $4.9 billion would take place in fiscal 2011, and that your understanding is about $2 billion of that has already been spent?
The number for FY 2011 is $4.95 billion. And the number that you just estimate, then, if we're 5 months into this year, then it's 5/12 of that $4.95 billion that would be spent. So I'm going to guess it's 2.3 or somewhere in there that's been spent.
Now,
and the balance of that will come automatically if we don't stop it.
Now, in the CR that the House of Representatives passed last month, that of course has not been approved, the amendments that dealt with some of the Obamacare funding in that CR, would they have canceled this $2.3 billion approximate in spending for the rest of the
No, they would not have, because the amendments that were offered, Danny Reberg offered a very good one. It paved the way so that my two amendments could go on, and they did. One of mine was the broadest, that said none of the funds in this act, the continuing resolution, shall be used to carry out the provisions of Obamacare. But the automatic spending was outside the of that continuing resolution, H.R. 1. Therefore, it doesn't get at the automatic spending, and I could not get an amendment in order that would do so, whatever the level of effort that I went through, and that's a longer story, Terry.
Right, so the Obamacare amendments that were in fact included in the original CR that we read about in the press, that in some cases gave the appearance that Obamacare had been defunded for this year, only address the discretionary spending elements of the program and not these ones that are in the CRS report.
That's exactly and precisely correct, Terry.
Now, you and I talked before, Congressman, about the process you went through to try and get your amendment that would prohibit this other $2.3 billion in spending for Obamacare, and you were not given a rule that will allow you to bring it up on the House floor. Tell me about how things are looking now, about the way things are going to work on a long-term CR in terms of your effort to get this defunded.
Well, we got the announcement last night that said that leadership is going to bring what they will call, again, a clean CR for 3 weeks to continue the funding of the federal government that doesn't have on it the provisions that the House fought for 90 hours of floor debate, including the provisions that go back and shut off the automatic spending of Obamacare and go back and collect up those post-dated checks that are written by the Obama administration last year. And so if they bring that clean CR, as they call it, then we kick the can down the road another 3 weeks. We've demonstrated our willingness to continue to extend this negotiation without having taken a stand anywhere. And as we bring these negotiations forward, there's going to be a debt ceiling debate that it will collide with. And if that happens simultaneously in the same week, that there's a potential shutdown of the government because we run out of funding due to a CR. At the same time, we're negotiating a potential starve down of the government by not having a debt ceiling bill. Who knows what happens? It could be the most dramatic confrontation in the history of Congress. But what has to happen is we have to write my language into the CR and take a stand, stare the President in the eye and say, Mr. President, we're going to make sure this government has the resources to function, but we're also going to make sure that there are no resources to implement or carry out the provisions of Obamacare. And if you should choose to shut down the government in order to preserve socialized medicine that has your name on it, that is your choice, not ours, but we're not going to allow that unconstitutional bill to be enacted on deceptive funding on our watch.
Congressman, if the Republican leadership kicks the can down the road, as you say, for another 3 weeks, meaning there'll be 5 weeks of government funding, more than a month of government funding done on these CRs that do not have the Republican amendments. Won't there be tremendous pressure at that point, given, as you pointed out, that the debt ceiling will be at that moment about to be breached, to roll a lifting of the debt ceiling into a CR that funds the government?
Well, there'd be some pressure to do that, to roll those two in together, and the leverage changes significantly. And at this point, it's like a chess game. It's enough moves out that it's hard to say who has the advantage when you get to that place right before they start exchanging pieces quickly. And but it is, if you're a chess player, there's often on the board one square where many of the pieces focus their power, and that's where the game will turn. And whoever can see through that scenario the best and initiate or force the other hand into initiating wins. That's the way I describe what comes if we don't take our stand now. Yep. And so Michelle Bachmann and I have taken our stand, Terry.
Congressman, now, so thus far, Speaker Boehner and Leader Cantor have not told you that they are committed to putting your amendment to truly defund Obamacare, including this $2.3 billion the CRS talks about, in the final CR. They are not committed to that, as far as you know.
I would think I would know if they were committed. I think they'd call me up right away and say, would you just plain take it easy? We will put your language in. I haven't heard that yet, Terry. And I don't see any inclination that they will do that, and I'm going to continue my discussions with them in hopes that they will.
And another issue, Congressman, Mike Pence had sponsored language in the original CR that got about 240 votes, I believe, in the House, to expressly prohibit funding of Planned Parenthood, which performs more than 330,000 abortions every year in the United States and gets more than $300 million in government funding. Is this CR, this clean CR they're talking about that'll kick the can down the road for another 3 weeks, that is going to continue to permit funding to go to Planned Parenthood during that time?
It will. That's the other very significant piece that's not included in the CR. And it's not been negotiated in any effective fashion in the short-term CR that we live under now, nor is it going to be in the 3-week, little longer short-term CR that they propose that will probably file tonight sometime after we leave town, so the 72-hour clock can tick. And that's a fight that needs to be fought too, Terry, and I've been talking to Mike Pence about that.
Are you aware of any commitment that the Speaker or Leader Cantor have made to ensure that the Republican majority House does not actually permit funding of Planned Parenthood for the remainder of this fiscal year?
I don't know where they would cut this off if they're not doing it in the CR, and they're apparently not willing to do so, at least as of yesterday afternoon when I spoke with Mike Pence about this, and that's why he said it's time to pick a fight. I agree. the fight over funding Planned Parenthood, the fight over funding Obamacare. Those things need to be fought. They need to be fought now. I have written a letter and signed it, and Michelle Bachmann has signed it, that it takes the pledge. It's actually a pledge. It's posted on her website and on mine and our Facebook, asking members to go to that site and sign the letter that says that they will vote no on any CR that doesn't cut off the automatic spending and all the funding to Obamacare. If Mike Pence is interested in introducing such a letter, I'm interested in signing it as well. But I think both of these are very important fights, and I'm hopeful that we can get enough troops to get the job done.
You're asking fellow members of the House of Representatives now to pledge, by signing your and Michelle Bachmann's letter, not to vote for any CR that doesn't defund this built-in spending for Obamacare.
That's correct. And that letter went up on my website and hers last night, sometime, I suppose, about 7:30.
And so far, are you the only two to sign it?
So far, we've decided to present it this way. If members want to sign it, but they don't want their name released because of repercussions, then we'll keep their name confidential. And if they would like to let the American people know that they've signed the letter, they can issue their press release to say so. That way we can get the maximum number of support for this. But, when the vote goes up on the board, if we don't get the language in the bill, we'll know who signed it.
And you say that if Congressman Mike Pence were to put up a similar letter for his Planned Parenthood amendment, you would be happy to sign it?
I'd say, Mike, would you please do that? Absolutely.
You're calling on Mike Pence to do that.
I hope he does. I am. I've talked to him personally about that, and he's got to chart his own strategy, though. He spent his time in the leadership circle. He understands that dynamic and organism better than I do, and I respect his judgment. He has led on this issue with Planned Parenthood at least 3 years. I thought when he first brought it, he couldn't get the job done. Now I think we must get the job done. The time is right. So I stand with him on that issue. How can we, in any economic time, if we had cash pouring out of our coffers, how could we compel Americans to fund abortion, let alone at a time when we're in economic and cutting the budget? Planned Parenthood could have none of our dollars, none of the American taxpayer dollars, and none of the money we borrow from the Chinese or the Saudis. That's an easy decision on my part, and I hope that Mike makes that call.